I see what.
And yet...
No, they're too preoccupied with identity.
Jordan Peterson is regarded as one of the smartest and most interesting thinkers in the world. The psychologist gets himself into many debates and discussions on some very important topics and issues over the years, and he's produced numerous great moments from these discussions. Here are just 10 of them. To start off, we're about to see Jordan Peterson in an interview where the discussion was surrounded by being offensive to people and freedom of speech. The woman asked a question to which Peterson had quite a blunt answer to, and well, this completely took the interviewer by surprise and left her speechless. She was completely taken aback by what Peterson said, and she couldn't argue against it.
Well,
but you get my point. You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on. So and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
gotcha.
You have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head.
In this next clip, Peterson is speaking at a school campus. He was rudely interrupted though by some SJW'S that just stormed through and caused a huge scene. But then they quickly learned not to mess with Jordan. He clapped back at them and he had the backing of the whole crowd. Strength in numbers, as they say.
You know, to hijack an event like this that other people put time and effort into, and to use their civility of the crowd and the civility of the organizers as an excuse to blatantly yell out your ill-informed opinions is no way to conduct a civil dialogue. It's absolutely appalling. The people who do that should be embarrassed.
Here, we have Jordan Peterson making some pretty funny jokes about some of the questions that he gets from clients. He made a joke in regards of one of the questions that he got asked, and he couldn't even not contain his laughter. Jordan sure has a good sense of humor.
And a client will come to me and say, well, I'm procrastinating. Why do I procrastinate? It's like, no, that's a stupid question. It's easy just to sit there and do nothing. What's the mystery is why you ever get up and do anything difficult at all. Procrastination is the default. And psychologists ask, doctors ask, well, why do people take cocaine? It's like, no, it's it's the wrong question.
Next, we have Jordan Peterson being interviewed, and the topic of discussion was about Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, and how he purposefully hired more women into his cabinet. The interviewer saw this as a positive and commended Trudeau, while Peterson was not impressed and actually explained how he sees it, and well, his view does make sense.
So I see a guy who's saying like, hey, it's great to see all these women out in solidarity, supporting equal rights for women, and
he wasn't supporting equal rights, he was supporting equality of outcome. And he was the same person who formulated his cabinet. It was one of his first acts as leader to ensure that his cabinet was 50% women and 50% men, despite the fact that only 25% of the elected people were women. He selected his cabinet on the basis of their...
Now we have Jordan Peterson on a show where he was asked about something he said about Liberals. The lady asking the question got what he said wrong, and Jordan gladly clarified. He explains that Liberals keep playing identity politics and believes that doing that is really problematic and just making things worse.
About how this dovetails with your thesis that the left is too preoccupied with being non-confrontational. Right?
The left is too preoccupied
just that
with
we are.
That's interesting.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
No, that's a good question.
The idea that liberals, especially intellectuals, are preoccupied with politically correct speech, that they're not.
I see.
And yet.
No, they're too preoccupied with identity politics by a large margin, and they tend to categorize everyone by their ethnicity and their sex and their gender, and I think all that does is turn people into tribal actors, and that the end result of that is catastrophe.
This time we have Jordan Peterson, who was a guest on the Joe Rogan podcast, and we have a really poignant and intense moment where they were talking about the pronouns, and Peterson reaffirmed his strong stance on the issue. He explains that he will not use the pronouns, especially since it's something being pushed by an ideology, and most notably the left-wing ideology.
So I didn't expect any support from my colleagues, and it isn't that I don't care if I got it, but it's in some sense it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to me because my goal was, I'm not saying those goddamn pronouns.
And the reason I'm not saying them is because they're made up by left-wing ideologues. And I don't like left-wing ideology. I don't like ideology, period. And I know where corruption of speech leads. And I'm not going there.
Here we have Jordan Peterson giving a speech on how everyone is oppressed or has a problem of some kind. He literally says that everyone is oppressed in some way, shape or form, and he describes and gives examples of how that could be. There are a few things that he said that got some people in there laughing. Just hear what he had to say.
Oppressed, you're oppressed, you're oppressed, you're oppressed. God only knows why. Maybe you're too short, or you're not as beautiful as you could be, or your grandparent was a serf, likely, because almost everybody's great-grandparent was. It's like, and you're not as smart as you could be, and you have a sick relative, and you have your own physical problems, and it's like, frankly, you're a mess. And you're oppressed in every possible way, including your ancestry and your biology, and the entire sum of human history has conspired to produce victimized you with all your individual pathological problems. It's like, yes, true.
At number 8, Jordan Peterson was a guest on Steven Crowder's YouTube channel, and while he was being introduced, Crowder asked him a question about professors when it comes to making jokes. Crowder noticed that professors rarely crack a smile even when telling jokes. Peterson expanded on this observation that Crowder had, and he actually cracked some jokes about it.
It's like you get professors and they say, I appreciate humor. But they don't crack a smile. Well, apparently they've had some kind of a face issue. So
I try not to crack a smile when I'm making jokes.
Really? Why?
It's more amusing to me that way.
That's more amusing to you. I can understand that. So your art is only for yourself. You know what some Canadians call that? Pretentious. So,
for our last clip in this video, in an interview, Jordan Peterson was asked whether men are able to understand what women go through. He believes that anyone could feel what anyone is going through, but it all depends on how good their understanding of things is. He then goes on further into the topic and gives some very interesting and valid points. He has quite a way of thinking. Just check this out.
White males, can we really understand the suffering of women?
Well, it depends on how useful your capacity for understanding the suffering of others is, or how well developed that is. I don't see that it's necessarily any more difficult to understand the suffering of women. Well, I would never pose the question that way, because I don't know how you understand the suffering of a group, being an individual. I don't think a woman can understand the suffering of women, because that's predicated on the assumption that an individual can take on the burden of a group, and I don't buy that assumption to begin with. I think we
Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you enjoy Jordan Peterson content and more stuff like this, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more. Goodbye for now, everyone. We hope to see you next time here on Raw Media.